Some men find God. Others, God finds them in the worst possible moment. I'm Hank Williams. Today we're stepping into a dusty town called Sweetwater, where a preacher with a blood-soaked past tried to hide behind a collar and a cross. But when evil came knocking, when outlaws spilled innocent blood on church steps, Josiah Kane had to remember who he was before he became a man of faith. This is a story about redemption's price, about what happens when the only way to protect the innocent is to become the very thing you swore you'd never be again. Before we reach the final grave, don't forget to join us on this journey through the unforgiving frontier. Subscribe and ring that bell, or risk missing the next tale when it rides into town. Now, let's see how far a soul can fall before it can't climb back. The rope bit into Reverend Kane's wrists as they dragged him through Sweetwater's mud. 3 outlaws. The Dolan brothers and their cousin, all reeking of whiskey and gunpowder. Rain had turned Main Street into a brown river. Kane's boots left twin grooves in the muck as Frank Dolan pulled him past the saloon, past the general store where Mrs. Chen watched from behind her curtain, too afraid to move. "Beg," said Frank Dolan, spitting tobacco juice that mixed with the rain. "Preacher man, get on your knees." Kane's Bible lay trampled 15 feet back, pages swelling with rainwater. His black coat torn open, revealing the colt he'd carried for 23 years before finding God. Or trying to. They'd killed the widow Garrett an hour ago. Shot her boy, too, 12 years old, Tommy, who'd served as altar boy last Sunday. All for a strongbox holding $40 and a deed to worthless land. "I said beg!" Frank cocked his revolver, pressed cold steel against Kane's temple. The Reverend looked at each man. Frank, mean drunk with a knife scar across his cheek. Virgil, the smart one, cold eyes calculating. The cousin, Jake, nervous trigger finger already twitching. Kane smiled, not warm. Something older than his Sunday sermons. Something from Bleeding, Kansas, 1863. "I don't pray for the dead." Frank's finger twitched on the trigger. The knife hidden in his boot came up fast. Bang! Frank's shot went wide as Kane drove the blade through his cousin's throat. Hot blood sprayed across the church steps. The Dolan scrambled back. Kane didn't stop moving, rolled left, wrists still bound, grabbed the dead man's pistol with both hands. Bang! Bang! Virgil Dolan took one in the shoulder, spun backward into the horse trough. Frank ran. Smart man. Kane stood slowly, working his wrists against the rope until it frayed loose on the knife edge. His hands shook. They always did after. 23 years since he'd killed a man. The Colt at his hip had stayed holstered through 4 sermons, 2 burials, and 1 wedding. Until today. Kane pulled Virgil out by his collar, dragged him onto the boardwalk. The outlaw's shoulder was shredded, bone visible through torn flesh. "Need a doctor," Virgil gasped. "You need a priest." Kane pressed his boot against the wound. "But I'm fresh out of mercy." Virgil screamed. The street was empty now. Doors closed, curtains drawn. Sweetwater had learned long ago not to interfere with the Dolans. "Where's Frank headed?" "Go to hell, preacher." Kane pressed harder. Blood pooled between the boardwalk planks, dripped onto the street below. "The Garrett boy bled out in front of his mother. You remember that? Tommy begged you to stop. You laughed." Virgil's eyes rolled white. "Copperhead Ridge. Frank's got 20 men there. Fortified mine." "How many knew about the Garretts?" "All of them. We drew straws. Me and Frank won." Kane released him. Virgil collapsed, whimpering. "Doc Jensen's 3 doors down. Crawl there if you want to live." Kane walked to his horse, tied outside the church. The mare nickered, nervous from the gunfire. He stroked her neck with bloody hands. "Easy, girl. Worse is coming." The Winchester 1873 hung in Kane's sacristy, wrapped in oilcloth behind the baptismal records. He'd told himself it was just history, a relic from a man who'd died in the Shenandoah Valley. That man was waking up. His hands moved automatically, unwrapping the rifle. The metal gleamed, oiled and maintained despite his vows. Muscle memory. Every Sunday after services, while the congregation shared coffee, Kane had climbed these stairs and cleaned this weapon, just in case. He loaded it with practiced efficiency. 17 rounds. Checked the action, smooth as silk. In the corner sat a wooden crate marked Hymnals. Inside, 3 boxes of ammunition, a Remington revolver, his old cavalry knife. The knife he'd used at Wilson's Creek, at Pea Ridge, at places whose names he'd tried to forget. Kane strapped on his old gun belt. The leather was worn but solid. He caught his reflection in the sacristy window. No longer looked like a preacher, looked like what he was, a killer in borrowed clothes. 7 miles to Copperhead Ridge. The rain had stopped, but the sky stayed gray, pressing down like a coffin lid. Kane rode past the Garrett homestead. The door hung open, swinging in the wind. He should stop. Should close that door, cover the bodies, say words over them. But Josiah Kane, the Reverend, was losing ground to the other Kane. The one who'd ridden with Quantrill's raiders. The one who'd burned Lawrence to ashes and felt nothing. He'd spent 13 years running from that man. Found God in a Missouri hospital, delirious with typhoid, certain he was dying. Made promises, took orders, buried the past. The past was riding with him now, Winchester across his saddle, old songs humming in his blood. The ridge came into view as the sun broke through clouds. 15 horses tied outside a mine shaft, smoke rising from a cook fire. Men moving between tents and supply wagons. 20 men, Virgil had said. Kane counted 17 visible. 3 more probably inside the mine. He'd faced worse odds at Centralia. Of course, back then he'd had Quantrill and 40 guerrillas. Today he had God. Maybe. Kane tied his horse a quarter-mile out in a stand of scrub oak. The mare was trained not to spook at gunfire, legacy of a different life. He moved through the sage on foot, Winchester ready. The ground was rocky here, good cover. He could smell the camp now. Coffee, bacon grease, unwashed men. Laughter carried on the wind. Someone playing harmonica badly. Kane crawled to the ridgeline, belly down in the dirt like old times. The camp spread below. 3 tents, a cook fire, wooden crates stacked high. Stolen goods, no doubt. The Dolans had been bleeding this county dry for 2 years. Frank sat by the fire, cleaning his pistol. Next to him, a big man with a gray beard. That'd be Cole Ramsey, wanted in 3 territories for murder. Beyond them, younger men, boys really, hired guns looking to make a reputation. Kane could wait until dark, pick them off one by one from the rocks. The old Josiah would have done that, but the Reverend wanted to believe there was another way, wanted to give them a chance. He stood up, rifle lowered, and walked straight into the camp. Frank Dolan. Every head turned. Conversations died. 17 pairs of eyes locked on him. Frank's smile died slow. "You got nerve, preacher, or you stupid." Kane stopped 20 feet from the fire, close enough to see their faces, far enough to move if he needed to. The Garrett woman, her boy. You're going to answer for them. Frank stood slowly, hand near his pistol. "Am I? Boys, the preacher here thinks God's on his side." Laughter rippled through the camp, forced, nervous. Cole Ramsey leaned forward. "Frank, this the one killed Jake? Your cousin?" "Same one." Man walks into a camp of 20 guns alone. Ramsey hawked and spit. That's either brave or suicidal. I don't care which, Kane said quietly. I'm walking out with Frank Dolan, dead or alive. Rest of you can ride away. Live another day. More laughter. Genuine this time. Frank stepped closer. You were different in that church. All soft words and forgiveness. What changed? You killed a child. We've killed lots of children. Why's this one special? Kane's finger moved to the Winchester's trigger. Because I knew him well. Frank's hand dropped to his gun. I know you too, preacher. And I know you ain't leaving here alive. I don't, Kane said, meeting his eyes. That's the problem. He raised the Winchester. The camp exploded. Bang, bang, bang! Kane dropped 3 men before diving behind the ore cart. Bullets punched through wood, showered him with splinters and rust. The old rhythm came back. Breathe, aim, fire. Don't think, don't feel. Bang! 4 down. A man clutching his throat, blood spurting between fingers. Kane rolled left as shotgun pellets tore up the ground where he'd been. A young kid rushed him with a knife. Couldn't be more than 17, wild-eyed and screaming. Kane caught his wrist, drove his forehead into the kid's nose. Bone crunched. The kid dropped. Kane took his pistol. Bang, bang, 6 down. His shoulder burned. Grazed, not deep, but blood soaked through his shirt. He ducked behind the supply crates as rifle fire splintered the wood above his head. Frank was shouting orders, trying to organize them. But they were panicking, shooting wild, hitting each other in the crossfire. Kane popped up, fired 3 quick shots. Bang, bang, bang! 2 more dropped. One screamed, leg shattered. Then his Winchester clicked empty. Kane threw the rifle, hit a man in the face, bought himself 2 seconds. Rolled behind the tents, drawing his Colt as he moved. Bang, bang! 8 down. But they were closing in now, learning. 5 men flanking left, 3 more circling right. Cole Ramsey directing them like a general. Kane ran for the mine entrance, high ground, choke point. Old cavalry tactics. Bang! A bullet clipped his leg. He stumbled but kept moving. Made it inside just as gunfire erupted behind him. The mine shaft was dark, smelled like earth and explosives. He pressed against the rock wall, breathing hard. Footsteps outside, whispered planning. Then Frank's voice. Smoke him out. Throw the dynamite. Kane's blood went cold. He pushed deeper into the shaft, found a side tunnel. Tight squeeze. He wedged himself in just as... Boom! The explosion shook the mountain. Rocks fell. Dust choked everything. His ears screamed. When it settled, the main tunnel was blocked. He was trapped. No. There. Moonlight through a crack in the ceiling. Natural chimney. 20 feet straight up. Kane started climbing. His fingers found holds in the rock face. Old wounds in his shoulder reopened, made the stone slick with blood. But he climbed. 12 feet up, the rock crumbled. He fell, caught himself on a ledge. Hung there, legs dangling over nothing. Below, voices echoed. Cave-in got him. Better check. You check. I ain't crawling in there. Kane pulled himself up, kept climbing. 18 feet. 20. His hand broke through into cool night air. He hauled himself out onto the ridge, collapsed on his back, gulping air. Stars above, endless and cold. He could hear them below, arguing, celebrating, thinking he was dead. Kane crawled to the edge, looked down. 11 men left. They'd pulled back from the mine, afraid of another collapse. Frank stood by the fire, drinking whiskey. Anyone see the body? Tunnel's blocked solid. He's dead or dying. Good. We move camp at dawn. This place is burned. Kane counted ammunition. 4 rounds in his Colt, that was all. 4 rounds. 11 men. The old Josiah Kane would have found a way. The Reverend just wanted to lie down and let God decide. But Tommy Garrett's face was in his mind. 12 years old. Begged them to stop. Kane stood up. He worked his way around the ridge in darkness, moving silent as smoke. Found their horses tied in a draw below. 17 horses for 11 men. He spooked them, fired a shot into the air. Bang! And the horses scattered, thundering into the night. Chaos erupted in the camp. Men running, cursing, trying to catch their mounts. Kane moved through the confusion like a ghost. Bang! A man fell. Bang! Another. They were shooting at shadows now, at each other. In the dark, they couldn't tell friend from enemy. Cole Ramsey's voice boomed. "Hold fire! Hold fire!" But panic had them. 2 more dropped to friendly fire. Kane reloaded in the darkness, fingers steady despite everything. Found 3 more cartridges in his pocket. 7 total now. 7 rounds. 7 men left standing, including Frank. Fair odds. He waited in the rocks until their fire died down, until the moon set and true darkness came. Then he walked into the camp again. This time, no words. Bang, bang, bang! 3 down before they knew he was there. The remaining 4 scattered. Cole Ramsey fired blind, hit a tent. Frank ran for the ore cart. Kane followed, reloading as he moved. His leg dragged where the bullet had grazed him, shoulders screaming. But the old machinery was running smooth now. He found Frank behind the cart, trying to reload with shaking hands. "Just you and me now," Kane said. Frank looked up. In the starlight, he looked young, scared. "You're supposed to be a man of God." "I was. Then you killed that boy." Frank's pistol clicked, empty chamber. He dropped it, raised his hands. "Wait, please, we can—" Kane shot him in the knee. Bang! Frank screamed, collapsed. "That's for Tommy." Kane stepped closer. "This is for his mother." He pressed the Colt against Frank's forehead. Frank was crying now. "Please, God, please." "I don't pray for the dead." Bang! Silence crashed down like a church bell. Kane stood over Frank's body, smoke curling from his Colt. Around him, 13 men lay dead or dying. The camp was destroyed, fire spreading through the tents. Cole Ramsey moaned somewhere in the darkness, gut shot. Kane found him behind the supply crates. The big man was holding his stomach, blood seeping between fingers. "Finish it," Ramsey gasped. Kane knelt beside him. "Where'd you hide the money? The deeds you stole?" "Mine shaft, false wall, 20 feet in." "Anyone else know about it?" "Just Frank and me." Ramsey coughed blood. "You really a preacher?" "Was." "What are you now?" Kane looked at his hands, covered in blood and gunpowder. "Damned." He stood, walked back to the fire, sat down heavily. His leg throbbed, shoulder was numb. He'd been grazed twice, cut once, bruised everywhere. But he was breathing. 13 men weren't. The fire crackled. In the distance, coyotes started howling. Kane closed his eyes and tried to pray. The words wouldn't come. At dawn, Kane dug through the mine shaft, found the false wall where Ramsey had said. Behind it, 3 strong boxes full of stolen money, jewelry, land deeds. 2 years of robbery, murder, and extortion. He loaded it all on a salvaged horse, rode back toward Sweetwater as the sun climbed. The Garrett homestead was still and dark. Kane stopped, tied the horse, walked inside. The widow lay on the kitchen floor, flies already thick. Tommy was in the doorway where he'd tried to run, both covered in blood. Kane found a shovel in the barn, spent 4 hours digging graves under the cottonwood tree. His wounds screamed, but he didn't stop. When he finished, he wrapped the bodies in clean sheets, carried them one at a time. The widow was light as a child, Tommy even lighter. No words came. He just filled in the graves, packed down the soil, marked them with wooden crosses he carved from fence posts. Then he rode back to Sweetwater. His congregation was waiting at the church. They'd heard the explosions in the night, seen the smoke on the ridge at dawn. Now they stood in front of the church, farmers, shopkeepers, widows, watching him ride up covered in dried blood. Mrs. Chen stood in front, holding her daughter's hand. "Reverend Kane, what happened?" He dismounted slowly, every muscle protesting. Looked at them, these good people who'd hired him to marry them, baptize their children, bury their dead. Not this. "I killed 13 men last night." His voice was steady, empty. "Frank Dolan's crew. They murdered Sarah and Tommy Garrett." Silence. Then Mrs. Chen's daughter started crying. Kane dropped the saddlebags on the church steps. "Deeds, money, jewelry, everything they stole. Return it to whoever it belongs to." Old man Pritchard stepped forward. "The Dolans had this whole county scared for 2 years. Sheriff wouldn't touch them. Judge was paid off. You did what needed doing." "Maybe." Kane unbuckled his gun belt, set it on the step next to the money. The Colt looked wrong there, dark and evil against the white-painted wood. "But I'm not your preacher anymore. Can't be. A man can't serve 2 masters, and I just chose mine." He walked past them into the church. In the sacristy, he gathered his few possessions, a change of clothes, his Bible, the photograph of his wife, dead 11 years. Mary Kane, died of cholera in Missouri while he was off playing soldier. Never got to say goodbye. Never got to tell her he was sorry for all of it. When he came out, the congregation was still standing there. Mrs. Chen stepped forward. "Where will you go?" Kane looked west toward the mountains, snow already on the peaks. "Somewhere I can't hurt anyone else." "You saved us," Pritchard said. "No, I just killed the men who were hurting you. There's a difference." He mounted his horse, rode west without looking back. Behind him, Sweetwater stood silent. The church bell didn't ring. 3 days later, a federal marshal rode into Sweetwater. Name was Heck Thomas, famous manhunter. He'd been tracking the Dolan gang for 16 months. He rode up to Copperhead Ridge, found the bodies, the destroyed camp, the evidence scattered across the mountainside. 13 dead outlaws, wanted men, all of them. Combined bounties totaling $8,000. But no witnesses, no shooter. Marshal Thomas spent 2 days investigating, talked to everyone in Sweetwater. They all said the same thing. Gang must have turned on each other, fought over the gold. He didn't believe them. The pattern was wrong, too efficient, too surgical. This was a soldier's work. He found a black Bible in the mud by the church, pages swollen with rain. Inside the cover, written in careful script, Josiah Kane, Matthew 10:34. Thomas looked up the verse in the Garrett homestead where he was staying. "Think not that I am come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword." He closed the Bible slowly. His official report read, "Gang killed each other over division of spoils. Case closed." No mention of a preacher. Some things didn't need to be said. Kane rode for 2 weeks, avoiding towns, sleeping under stars. His wounds healed slowly, leg first, shoulder taking longer. The cuts on his hands from the mine climb left permanent scars. He found the valley by accident, chasing a deer. So remote, the nearest settlement was 40 miles away, over 2 mountain passes that closed in winter. Perfect. He built a cabin by the creek that fall, working from dawn to dusk. Fell asleep each night, too exhausted to dream. But winter came, and with it, stillness. Time to think. The nightmares returned. Tommy Garrett's face, the kid with the knife, 17 years old. Frank Dolan begging, the widow's flies-covered body. And older memories, too. Bleeding Kansas, the burning of Lawrence, Wilson's Creek. All the faces piled up across 30 years. Spring came. Kane planted a garden, hunted deer, fished the creek, lived like a hermit. Sundays he still read his Bible, still prayed, though the words felt like ashes in his mouth. The Colt stayed wrapped in oilcloth, buried under the floorboards. He told himself he'd never touch it again. Told himself a lot of things. On his 50th birthday, Kane stood in the creek at dawn, water up to his knees. Watched the sun rise over the mountains, painting the snow gold. He looked at his reflection in the still water. Gray beard, scarred hands, eyes older than the peaks around him. "I don't pray for the dead," he whispered to his reflection. Because he was one of them. Had been since Wilson's Creek, maybe. Or Centralia. Or that night on Copperhead Ridge. Dead men walking, carrying the weight of their kills, trying to pretend they're still human. The valley kept his secret, and Josiah Kane kept breathing, which was more than 13 men could say. That was his victory. That was his prison. Sometimes, late at night, he imagined Tommy Garrett standing by the creek. Imagined telling the boy he was sorry. Imagined the boy saying it was okay, that he understood. But Tommy never appeared. The dead don't forgive. They just wait. Kane kept waiting with them, rifle loaded under the bed, Colt beneath the floor, watching the mountains and wondering when he'd need them again. Because men like him don't retire. They just kill until someone kills them. He'd been lucky at Copperhead Ridge. Next time, maybe not. But until then, creek flowing, garden growing, sky endless above, Josiah Kane would keep breathing, keep remembering, keep waiting for the reckoning he knew was coming. And so, Josiah Kane remains in that valley, waiting, watching the mountains, living with ghosts that never speak, carrying a weight that never lightens. Some men chase redemption, others just survive what they've become. You know, the frontier wasn't about heroes and villains. It was about men making impossible choices in impossible situations, and living or dying with what came after. If Kane's story moved you, if you felt the weight of that reckoning, then you need to hear what happens when the past finally catches up. There's another tale waiting for you. A man named Jacob Mallory. 16 years ago, he killed a sheriff in contention, built a new life, new name, thought he was safe. Then 4 brothers walked into his saloon, the sheriff's sons, come to finish what their father started. I killed their father 16 years ago. Now they are here to finish the job. It's 1881 in the Arizona Territory, and Jacob Mallory is about to learn that some debts you can never outrun. Click that video on your screen now, or check the description below. Subscribe if these stories speak to you. There are more ghosts waiting to be heard on this frontier. Ride with me again. Let's see if Jacob Mallory finds what Josiah Kane never could. Until then, keep your powder dry.